recording. Okay, this is D&D teacher training session number 3. So it's the 3rd year that we've done this now. We're going to start with introductions, and since I have it on the right-hand side of my screen here, Mr. Mountain Dwarf, you are first, and then it'll be Kat, Robinson, Gina, and then Allison. So go ahead and introduce yourself and your subject.
John Daly, is 7th grade ELA.
Kathleen Martin, 7th grade math.
Matt Robinson, 7th grade social studies.
Gina Nelson, 6th through 8th grade project lead the way and tech ed.
Allison Wiedemann, school counselor.
Awesome. Thanks, you guys. So previously to this experience, Kat, Matt, and Allison have never played Dungeons and Dragons before. Can you articulate to your experiences as newcomers with character creation first? In other words, why did you choose the class and race that you decided to choose? Allison, let's start with you on the bottom.
I think that when I was just kind of looking over the different characters, I don't know, I think just some of the traits appealed to me about my character, and maybe I felt like a lot of the features of the elf paladin went with my role as a school counselor, maybe.
Makes a lot of sense.
I was drawn to that character and the things that they can do.
That makes sense, Allison. You are actually very paladin-like in your demeanor, just as a person. So it makes sense that that would land with you. Matt, why did you choose the hobgoblin fighter?
Well, fighter was the easier choice. It's what I mostly do if I do games, whether it be video games or not. It's an easy. I felt it would be an easy intro to D&D, since it's not any of like having the spell slots or second degree spell slots and that. So I was like, I can do this and understand what this PD is about if I play this type of character. But I knew enough about D&D kind of lore through podcasts I've listened to that I didn't want to just do another human or an elf. So I saw hobgoblin. I went, that's weird. Let's be weird.
It turned out to be a really cool race. It was neat to see somebody play it because I'd never seen anybody play a hobgoblin before. They have lots of cool little broken stuff that they can do.
If I continue this, I'm keeping the hobgoblin.
You gotta reach out. Thanks a lot, Matt. Kat, why did you pick the drow rogue?
Same reason as Matt. I have played games like Skyrim and video games, and I die fast if I get up there in the battle. And so it's just something that I'm comfortable with, is being the one standing back, potentially casting spells or doing a bow attack, and not taking a whole lot of damage. It's just safer. And that's what I am as a personality too. I try to avoid conflict as much as humanly possible.
Okay, so the reason I directed that at the newcomers is because I know why John picked his character and why Gina picked her character is because they played before. So as people who have played before, who already know how to play D&D, guys, John and Gina, why play D&D for grad credit? Either one of them.
You just grad credit. It's a grad credit. I mean, I knew how to play, and then, a couple people from my team were playing. I was like, this is a chance to see them in a different setting. And, yeah, it was nice to see them outside of a work environment and interact with them that way. So partly because of the grad credit and partly because, team members were in there. So that's kind of why I chose it.
Pretty cool way to get a grad credit, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Gina, go ahead.
Yeah, and I am kind of separated from the rest of the school, and so I don't get to hang out with a lot of my fellow staff members. And so it's fun to kind of get to interact with people I don't get to see every day, and to be able to do it for grad credit and to play a really fun game that's challenging, but really, really fun and cool at the same time. So I think that it was a no-brainer for me.
So just to cover the gambit of the panel, John was a mountain dwarf wizard, and Gina was a druid circle of stars, right? And that was something that was new to you. And John, you've been playing for 25 years, almost as long as me, right?
Yeah, I started about 15 in high school somewhere. So.
And this nerd has never played a spellcaster before until D&D PD as a teacher. So that was an
Yep.
interesting choice and something that that surprised me a little bit. So thanks for that. That's just sort of covers our bases. So guys, this is open to all of you then. As a teacher, can you speak to the task of making a character for students? In other words, for instance, you've all Allison articulated, well, those are kind of the things that are in my personality. And that's kind of what rose to the surface. Why do you think, although difficult, that the kids would approach this with enthusiasm? What do you think it does for them during that character creation stage? Can you express to that sentiment as educators? Anybody can take it, doesn't matter what order. Talking
I'll
about
pop
character
in.
creation. Go ahead, Matt.
I mean, middle school is all about self-discovery. It's 100%, and this gives them a kind of like a safe space to be goofy.
Mhm.
Maybe they can't like openly tell their friend, "Oh, I'd like to do this," or have a moment of themselves. And so by doing this, they can kind of dry run a potential a personality trait, even or friendship.
Anybody else?
Something I really like is, as an English teacher, I know that those manuals are about 1,500 Lexile, which means we're pushing them as readers. And then to develop a character, you need to do research. So you need to have some research skills. So the academic part is built in already. So that's what I really like about it. As an English teacher, I could definitely see the benefit because they're reading above their level, having to do research, having to make decisions, and having to collaborate. So, I mean, it hits the hard skills and the soft skills that we try to hit as educators.
Precisely.
I was gonna add something too. I'm sorry. Hopefully you guys aren't picking. There's some loud music happening out
That's
here.
okay.
Hopefully you guys aren't hearing it through the thing. But I was just gonna say, I think it's probably really cool for the kids to kind of live vicariously through the characters that they pick and get a chance to really be creative and maybe pick something totally opposite from their personality and, you know, live through that. So I think that that's really cool to get a better understanding of how that works for them.
They usually, when they make their characters for the first time, it is as far away from opposite as it can possibly be. They're very much in zoned of like, well, if I was in this world, this is the person that I would be. I'll come back to that in just a minute. Kat or Gina, you want to reflect upon what you think that character creation process is like for students and why it might be valuable?
Yeah, I think it's just a lot of what everybody said. It's that deep learning that they're doing with all of the research and being able to consolidate information and pertinent information too. Yeah, it just takes a lot of brain power, and I think that's super valuable for students to be able to do.
Gina, do you think the game is scaffolded well enough that even if a person doesn't have incredible intelligence, that they can still train to play the game?
I believe so, especially with help, and I think that's where that collaboration comes into play too, in the classroom. There's a lot going on, but I do think, especially if you had students, you know, in pairs or in smaller groups, they can work on it together and
And
do very
anytime I
well.
do this, I do always have them grouped together. We're going to take Kat and then John. Okay, go ahead, Kat.
I don't have a ton to add, but I was just kind of like, everyone needs a chance to like geek out every once in a while. And I think that this like character creation is something that everyone, as like reserved as they may be to hear, it's Dungeons and Dragons, like everyone can get into making a cool character and picking their looks and their gear. And so it just kind of puts everybody on like a level playing field for a hot minute. Like we're all kind of into this and we don't want to maybe claim we're not going to play or whatever. But I remember when we started using Classcraft as a classroom management tool, yeah, everybody was into creating their characters and they spent way too long doing it because it was just so much fun. And so puts everybody on that nerdy playing field for a little bit, and just gets them more comfortable with each
That's
other.
a good way of putting it, Kat. Really is. John, go ahead.
The one thing I wanted to point out is, like you said, I've played for a little bit. I've helped people learn. What I really liked is your color coding. Like the fact that when someone was struggling with something, you're like, hey, blue box, red box. And I've played for years and I've never seen anybody do that. And I kind of feel like an idiot that I never thought of that. But I mean, I saw how it helped the new players. You were able to say red box and that narrowed it down. And so like talking about someone with, you know, limited intelligence, one, the game is set up scaffolded, but then you also come in with extra supports that really help out. So that was something as an experienced player, I wish I had as a beginning player.
I recognized the necessity of that color coding when I started to bring it to students. And you guys are all highly intelligent people. And I watched you new players struggle to find the same spot on your character sheet week after week to do, the most basic elements of the game. And so the reason that's significant is one of the reasons I love this so much is you're all trained educators of experience with adult minds and mindsets. And when I notice the difficulties with what you guys are doing during gameplay, you can imagine the difficulties of children doing it. But like what I expressed when we finished our game, you guys run 11 or 12 sessions or whatever we ended up with, and my kids will run 30. So can you see how after the point where you guys are at, how the next 10 sessions would really compound your learning? Like another 10 sessions from where we are, do you think you'd know where to look at your character sheet to find your attack and stuff and things?
I love a cheat sheet.
Yeah, Matt, let's address your cheat sheet real quick.
Finally,
that's a
last time we
learning tool.
played.
That's a learning tool that you created in order to make a visual aid for your character's success. Would you just kind of briefly explain why you felt it was necessary and what that would mean for a learner?
Yeah, so for me, the classic D&D paper was a little too chaotic for like knowing where I was putting things, and it was just I was writing so small, and it was just I was like I'm not finding it fast enough. And I was putting things in different spots, and so I just decided I'm going to make something that is a little over the top, a lot easier to read for me. I color coded it. I kind of borrowed your idea of the color coding and even made a key for the different types of hobgoblinness I could do.
Okay, so
And
how
we
does
just made it
it into the world of teaching, Matt? How does that pertain to education?
Yeah, that was going to be my answer to number 7. It kind of gave me a guided reading almost of my own player sheet and a way so I could take something from one source. I had to summarize it and then put it in my own words in a way that I would understand it with the vocab terms of something like 1d6 plus proficiency bonus or having superiority dice, what that meant, how a maneuver affected my attack roll. So I had to put it in my own words, take it from multiple sources, because this is from both the player's handbook and the Multiverse of Monsters, I think was the name of the book.
Monsters of the Multiverse, yep.
And so it's taking multiple documents, multiple sources,
yep,
them into one, making it more applicable to myself and in my own words.
So when we do that in education, it's called research.
Yeah.
You made yourself a study guide by doing research. So those are the scholastic skills. So Matt kind of got us started here on this idea. As you continued playing and learn more about the game, were you surprised by anything as a player and an educator, especially as it relates to the task of teaching and learning? So this is really the big statement. As teachers who have been trained to be teachers, then learning how to play this game, what was the aha? What do you feel like as a counselor or the teachers that you felt like there's no way, no wonder Wells does this in his class? And we can start with John and work our way down this time.
I wasn't really surprised of anything. Like I said, I mean, I played it for a while. I actually used it in my classroom for a while. So, I mean, I recognize the educational value. I mean, just the reading point.
Yeah.
But then you're looking at the collaboration, all of those speaking and listening skills. So that's kind of what I see. I mean, I wasn't surprised at anything. But I definitely, I mean, I see the value. I've been in since day one with the value of gaming and stuff in the classroom. So yeah, I mean, there was no surprises there. It was a good time.
Right on. Kat?
As a math teacher, obviously you have to keep track of your hit points of the damage that you do on someone, but we even like in battle, like we took half damage or we took quarter damage sometimes. And just so, I mean, nobody likes math, let's be real. But so doing it in a game makes it a little bit easier for them. They don't think that they're just sitting down solving problems. And so it takes the anxiety or like the boringness, I guess, out of the math that they're doing, but they are in fact doing a whole lot of math while they're
Quite a
playing
bit
the
of
game.
basic math, right? Can you see how this would be applicable for like senior or junior statistics?
I don't know what seniors and juniors do in statistics. What do they cover?
I work with a teacher who teaches statistics in the East Coast, on the East Coast. And D&D basically is statistics, right? Like, what are my odds of hitting this monster? Yeah.
Yeah, just rolling the die and seeing your hit points. Yeah, 100%. I mean, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, we're covering probability right now. It's all dice rolls.
It is. It's probability. So as a math teacher, if you went into it, maybe next time you play, see how much math stuff you can pull out. Like, we know the obvious stuff, right? The adding the numbers, and you got variables and controls. But I'd be very curious to hear more from a math teacher, especially about how it may pertain to campaigns and quests later on and stuff like that. I'm eager to talk about that. Matt, I'm going to skip you because you had the great visual aid, and I'm going to go to Gina. Gina, what was your aha this time? This is like your third time.
Yeah, at this point, I'm not really surprised by anything because I definitely see the value. Like, I've experienced it now, 3 times here at school and our personal campaign, and just understanding that, yeah, there's a lot going on, a lot of educational value with the math that we've talked about and the research and
Have
collaboration
you
skills.
noticed any change in your own cognition, Gina? Now that I've seen you play like 4 different times in 4 different campaigns, have you noticed any change in your own self as like a learner or a person or a gamer? And if so, could you possibly express it?
Yeah, each time I've played, I've done a different class for sure. I think I've doubled up on a couple of races, but I've tried to play a different class, and just having done a few different classes, starting in with this new one, I'd never played a druid before, but I was familiar with what I needed to look for like spellcasters. So I've played a sorcerer, and I'm playing an artificer now in a different campaign. And so I was aware of stuff that I needed to look out for. And so like just having that knowledge stack that way, and yeah, just being able to apply it across the board.
Would you believe for students, those skills you're talking about are completely transferable to everything else in their life? Lots of things
Oh yeah.
become a lot easier. Allison, I'm really curious to hear your aha moment, if you had one, as an educator and especially a counselor. How does this relate to the task of teaching and learning as you see it?
Yeah, well, I've heard you talk a lot about D&D, and so I was excited to get to experience it more firsthand.
Mhm.
And I guess for me, was most surprised by the multiple facets of benefit that it has for
Mhm.
helping kids in lots of different areas. We've
Mhm.
talked about the reading level, of course, but even like the leadership skills that it develops for kids, and the teamwork that is used to play, and the creativity. So I guess that's a big takeaway for me, is just the multiple areas of benefit that can come from it. This was very new to me. I've never done this type of gaming before, so it was just fun to see it more in action and what the kids do get out of it.
To know what nerds actually do. You bring up a great point that we're going to move into here, and you said something that I was going to swing back to that was really good, but I'm going to forget it. Allison, while I got you here, can you speak to the relationship building as you saw it as a player? And did it bond all of us together more? And then what do you see that looking like for learners, the social piece?
Yeah, I think it gives people definitely a chance to see one another in a different light. I was just in awe of all of you guys and your playing abilities and all the stuff that you were able to do with your characters. It was just fun to see that and be part of it. And it does definitely create more connection between people in a different way than you would normally experience at school. Because yeah, you can be in class with someone and you're doing your work, but this is a totally different way to experience your classmates and being with other people. So
The forced interaction with a goal and an objective and having characters is really very beneficial. I'm going to go back up the line. Gina, go ahead. The social piece.
Yeah, I kind of talked about it earlier that it's nice getting to be able to get to know people that you don't get to hang out with every day. And like with kids especially, you're gonna have some of those kids who would not have interacted at all until they were, sitting down at a table together and playing. And so you've got the quote unquote popular kids playing and being on the same team as
The
like the
robotics kids.
quiet kids. Yeah, my robotics kids, exactly. And so it just brings people together, and I love that about
And like Kat said,
play.
leveling that playing field, right? Like everybody starts out at first level, and everybody who's new to playing doesn't know everything. I see that a lot with my highly intelligent kids when they have trouble understanding what's going on in the game's text and how to apply it. All of a sudden, the person who thought they were so smart is like, oh, this person that we all thought was dumb might actually be smarter than me. That's always a really neat, thing where like the person who has always been super successful at everything then suddenly is challenged and they break down, and the kid who hated school is like, I love this is amazing, this is fantastic, and you can watch that growth. Is always really cool. Matt, can you speak to the social piece?
Yeah, I mean, Gina kind of mentioned it. I would never see Gina outside of
Yeah.
this. I mean, I saw her going to the parking lot, or when I subbed for her one day and she briefly told me what was going on before she had to run out. And so it was Wednesdays, I saw Gina. On Wednesdays, I saw Bonk. I got to see Brett in, outside of just chatting in the halls. It was, I'm new to the school, we all are. But I kind of was just getting used to being in East, and this gave me the opportunity to get used to being with people I don't see often. Because I saw Allison about as much this year outside of D&D as I saw her at South when we talked to the kids about, hey, this might be your counselor next year.
Right.
And so it kind of opened that up and allowed for communication that you wouldn't have had. And then, I mean, it could be as crazy as doing, like, we do flex schedules in school. I mean, you could have D&D be an entirely different set of kids that you would see on your normal Friday, and just have that be this is a whole different shift. I'm in my D&D group, and kind of view it that way. And then it was also fun to kind of grow as a player base against you, and kind of made you the villain, and it kind of gave us all a common enemy. So even as, like, with kids, it could be like the teacher's the enemy. We can bond against that. Even if we don't like D&D, it's like, well, I want to make Mr. Robinson's plans not work. So I will do my best to destroy whatever beautiful thing he's created.
Very good. Kat, what do you got to say about the social piece?
It's just like working together. Like there were times where we came across a problem and we're like, shoot, I don't know how to do that. What do you got? What do you have in your backpack, Robinson? Like that kind of thing. Like what spells do you have? And just like knowing that you couldn't play the game by yourself. You have to use the strengths of everybody else around you in order to beat some of those bosses and the challenges that we came across. It just made you look to other people and ask for help. Whereas, these kids, sometimes they're so terrified. They think asking for help is a weakness, and it's not, it's a strength.
Can you guys see what Kat just said is like a parallel directly into the world that we all live in? Like directly, right? Like we all have these skill sets. We all have a role to take. We can't do it alone. None of us have all the abilities of all the character classes. So I love that, Kat. That's actually really, really good. John, finish this out here. Social piece. You've kind of hit on it already.
There's a lot. Like, I just really feel like we really became a group. Like, even today at lunch, like Gina cut through and I just screamed at her, assassinate, so like, and then I know Martin and I fist bumped probably 50,000 times because we were at the back, like, yeah, we're not taking damage. Robinson always reminded me to grab our dice tower. So, and then, just the bond that I made with Bonk. And it was really cool to see Allison there. Like, honestly, Allison, you're not someone I would expect. It's like, let's play D&D. But I mean, you got way into it. And it was just really cool to see all these different people working together towards a common goal. And like forever, we're going to have those little things that happen during the game that we're going to be able to bring up in real life and conversations. Like, I'll probably call Hughes Bonk somewhere. Yeah, like all that stuff. I'll call Hughes Bonk every now and then. And, it's just the game really leaked out into the school and in a positive way, in a nice culture building environment. So
do you think that D&D and games like it give friendship a platform, like a context? It's almost like people who know the same movie really, really well and can talk in those movie quotes, and we get our own personal movie, right? And our own personal movie quotes and events that happen. Okay, we have 7 minutes left, pre-Zachley. We're going to start. So I got Deli here. Deli, what was the most fun or memorable moment for you during the campaign?
I would say probably picking up the barbarian that was twice my size and running with him, or the grease. Like there were too many to count, really. Like I saw the rule of cool so much, and at the table, everybody was having a good time. So I just think the entire thing was memorable,
But
and
when
I
when
couldn't
asked
really
you, the first
throw.
thing that comes to your mind is saving the barbarian and using grease on
Yep,
the Tyrannosaurus Rex as it was trying to chase you down. In the very first
yep.
chase scene of my 34 years of experience playing D&D, that was the first chase I ran. I'm glad that you enjoyed that. Kat, how about you? What was your most memorable moment?
I like to try to think outside the box. Like,
Mhm.
yeah, I have to get from here to there, but that's like, what's the weirdest way that I could get from here to there? And then, like you said, I didn't even consider working with the probability of the dice. Like, what are the odds that Cade's gonna let me get away with this? And we typically did.
Yeah.
We went against the normal probability of that event happening.
Was that when you were on the back of the giant rock bird and like swinging around by the
Yeah.
rope?
I was
Is
like,
that
I
what?
have to get down there, but wait, throw me down there. We can get down there faster.
That was a really cool quest. I really enjoyed that one. Robbie, what was your favorite? Matt, what was your favorite moment from the campaign, if you could?
Oh, that was doing a full Mission Impossible to go get some stuff off of a bird.
Okay.
Instead of landing in amongst the giant eagles, just kind of dropping Gina slowly into it and then just whipping her back up. It was a fun time. Also, John's grease was really the MVP of the entire time. Just anytime we could do it, he would do it, and it generally seemed to work out all but once.
A lot of monsters have a low dexterity. Gina, what was your favorite moment?
Yeah, I would say that the bird and collecting those feathers, we had to do a lot of like, yeah, Mission Impossible type tasks, and that was super fun. I also really liked our little underwater fight too.
Hmm,
I thought that was a cool mechanic, and then keeping track of, how deep we were with the dice was really cool.
awesome. Allison, how about you? Just most memorable moment?
I really liked our last session where we really had to figure out as a team what was going on and how we were going to overcome the situation and the monsters changing into each other. So that was really fun. I enjoyed that.
Well,
And I'm
just the
sorry I
finale.
gotta early here because I gotta get my dog to the vet. But thank you
Bye-bye.
so much.
Thank you, Allison. Appreciate you. We're just about done here, guys. Are there any activities or strategies that you've learned from D&D that you think could positively impact your instructional practices? Anybody who wants to take it?
I'm always, like I said, I'm always trying to find fun ways to make kids do math.
Yes, you are.
And so
Good at
I've
it.
had Pokemon, the card game, in my back pocket for a while. That just like the hit points and the, all of the stuff that the math that goes on in D&D. And so this is just another thing that I could have in my pocket to pull out and just if we're, yeah, we have to add, subtract, multiply, and but divide, but could we do it in game form to make it a
Mhm.
little bit more fun?
That's cool. Anybody else? No big deal if you don't.
Say I would say something that I did like not really necessarily the D&D like but just making like Friday like a board game day in my class. Like I saw you doing your weekly D&D and taking an idea from that, and just doing board games for, I'm probably not going to set this up in my room, but I will use the board game idea. And, the board game gives a lot of the same stuff with D&D, the collaboration and that type of stuff. So just the power of gaming is kind of what I'm taking away from it.
And
So-
that's really, John, what I'm trying to bring forth to education and have actually had a decent amount of success at is, people have D&D has gotten a bad rap in the past for no good reason, but just games in general, we think of like games as not traditional learning. But one of my favorite quotes is from Fred Rogers, AKA Mr. Rogers, who says, we like to think of play as not serious learning, but play is actually the work of childhood. And so one of my favorite self anecdotes is when you watch Mother Tiger with her cubs and the cubs are playing with the tail of Mother Lion or Tiger, they are not hating it, right? It's not like, oh, I got to learn how to hunt. Like those baby tigers are learning how to hunt by playing with mom's tail. And so that's why I say playing is the work of childhood. It is literally that which sets them, apart from us as adults. But if we can focus their play in the right way, we get both done at the same time. Work and play happen simultaneously, and they become more holistic people. Any last messages to the world at large that will see this eventually, like the 12 people who subscribe? Any last comments?
Thanks for
Well,
letting me play, man. It's great.
We'll do it every spring. Gina is up for a dungeon master chair now that she's full big girl pants and experienced, and we'll help get her set up. We might do one in the fall and one in the spring, just so we can get more people through it. I'm very, very grateful for you guys. It wouldn't work without y'all. I love you, and I'll see you tomorrow for Thursday on our way out of here. Bye, guys.
Thanks, Kate.
Thank you
Yep.
so much. Super, super fun.